So lately, I've been thinking about getting a higher paying and more lucrative job. And I was thinking that I might become an ice chipper. There's a lot of work to be done on the streets, and I'd be pretty good at it. But then I realized I already have a job as an ice chipper. And then I heard that New York City pays $1.5 million per fallen inch of snow to remove it from the streets. And I thought, now that's the business I want to get into. We'll hire a lot of snow shovelers, and we'll get a snowmaking machine. We'll put it outside and think of the possibilities. Consider the math. Or I realized I already have a job shoveling. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll get a job that issues one executive order per day. Just one. And then I realized that would get me fired by both the Baptists and the Congregationalists here, as well as most of the atheists and agnostics, and all I would have left are the ex-Catholics. And that wouldn't be enough. So, having considered all these options and a few more, I have decided to stick with my current job as an ordained Christian minister. As such, I follow Jesus. And when he gives a long sermon, like the Sermon on the Mount, I listen in. We're going to do 2 Sundays on this one and next week. And this part I want to focus on today is the middle part of what people call the Our Father. Lately, I feel like I am drinking water out of a rushing garden hose, or standing in so much lightning that I don't even have time to start counting before the thunder claps, or just moving from one landmine to another, and I think many of you feel that way too. And so I wanted to do something basic, and the Sermon on the Mount is about as basic as you can get, and the Lord's Prayer is even more basic. And as Flannery said so well, in so many different ways, she went to the genre of the grotesque because she was a Christian. And she knew she had to get people's attention paid to human suffering. She also was not a fan of pompous people or people who tweet a lot. And so we go first to the introduction that Jesus makes to the Lord's Prayer, in which he says, please don't be like the hypocrites do and call attention to yourself while you are praying. And then Jesus, who is rarely so didactic, goes on to say to us, pray this way when you pray. And he repeats the ancient Jewish prayer that we now call the Our Father, and gives it to us in 3 parts. The first is praise and submission. You who are in heaven, addressing God, hallowed be your name. Your time come. Your way be done on earth as it already is in heaven. That's the first part. The second part is what I call the karma part. It's the moral part. Jesus is rarely so karmic. Now, you know what karmic means. It's like karma. What goes around comes around. What you do, you'll see later. Life burps. Karma is not a very Christian concept, actually. In fact, you'll rarely find Jesus being so karmic, but right there in the middle of the Our Father, he says, forgive others and you'll be forgiven. Implication, don't and you won't. What you do to others will come back to you. He often provides escape valves for people who sin, And in this prayer, he does not. It's interesting. Now, most of us, sort of Protestants, have strong moral muscles and weaker praise muscles. We don't have strong karmic muscles. We rarely imagine that we have to do anything, right? St. Paul, what then? Shall we sin more so that grace will abound? In this prayer, Jesus is implying that if you want forgiveness, you better forgive. I'm not sure I believe that thoroughly, so don't bother me about it later. But I think it is true enough that it's worthy of a really good listen. Now, we're going to go back to the moral part, but the third part of the prayer is the more personal part. Please give us our daily bread. Deliver us from temptation. Lead us not into evil. The closer is a crescendo of praise. Yours is the power. Yours is the glory, now and forevermore. You heard it in the music. There's a crescendo of praise. You start with praise, you get karmic, and you end with praise. As we go through these uncertain times, that crescendo can really help. It boils down to thine, not mine. It boils down to God having power, and whether we win or lose all the battles that we are in, that's not the important thing. What I've often said is the most moral thing to do is to have a strong sense of proportion. And whether we win this victory or that one, or lose that one or lose that one, is not a strong sense of proportion. That's actually a kind of narcissism and self-obsession, given how long forevermore really is. That time, the big time, is thine, not mine. So while I do imagine forgiveness for those of us who cannot forgive coming in the larger scheme of things, in that eternity in which we start and in which we stop, while I do imagine forgiveness coming for everyone in that larger time, I am much less sure about this moment in time. And as you know, my usual tendency is to build up our sacramental and prayerful and gracious tendencies in full awareness of our overdone moral muscles. And today I cannot stay away from the karma of forgiveness because ICE has started the raids. And how could you stay away from the subject of forgiveness today, when our government is instituting a policy of not non-forgiveness, but anti-forgiveness? Anti-forgiveness, you've got a prior, you serve time for it, we're deporting you for that. That is anti-forgiveness. We who have been at Judson for a while are just too intimate with the suffering that this is causing to not attend to it. So go with me now straight to that passage about forgiving our debts as we forgive our debtors. The great majority of the people with priors have paid their dues and gone to jail or prison for their offenses, and they are now being deported to pay again for their offenses. That is double jeopardy, and it tries to put the lie to forgiveness or reparation for sin. Religious people of all kinds hold forgiveness as central to our faith. You could therefore argue that the state is attacking the principle of forgiveness as well as the forgiven in its sweeps. Therefore, our nation is in danger, great danger, of losing a fundamental principle, that of forgiveness and fairness, and I declare the religious right of refusal. You've heard that, right? The religious right of refusal, that's what Hobby Lobby got for us. How can you participate in anti-forgiveness as a Christian? You and I will pay something for our sins. I hear the karma, but I also think that I will not be forgiven if I don't forgive. In the ICE roundups, we find the principle of forgiveness attacked. We also simultaneously hear the great words of sanctuary and harboring being snarked at and attacked. Congregations who provide sanctuary to endangered people are only doing what we always do. We open this door to provide a sanctuary to people like you, to people like me, to people who aren't that great, you know? A few of us have priors, too. The idea that we would make believe we weren't a sanctuary because the state said we couldn't be a sanctuary goes to the heart of our business. We are a sanctuary. We open these doors and create safe spaces for all people, especially sinners. And I am one, and you are one, and this is our primary business. We provide safe spaces not just to people who aren't being attacked by the state. Jesus talked about the Good Samaritan over and over as wisely helping the one who might even be dangerous to him. You didn't get any points for being good to the good people. You got points for being good to the not-so-good people. Now, I do not accept the premise that immigrants are more dangerous than other people. They're not. They are actually less criminal than the overall population. But that being said, the entire operation of ICE is built on a false premise, that it is making us safe from dangerous immigrants. It is a big lie. In fact, strict immigration enforcement and the banning of refugees are both making us more endangered, not more safe. In the refugee ban, we are confirming the terrorist narrative, not challenging it. So forgiveness itself is being deported. And that is the biggest lie of all, that America is somehow so destined to be first that we cannot protect people who aren't among the first. That is so dangerous to the entire nation. Sanctuary, or the primary mission of the church, is threatened. Forgiveness is threatened, and we exist to forgive and to give sanctuary. I wanted to spend more time today on what Flannery O'Connor talked about when she said she wanted to be a Christian in her writing and be able to pray, and I can't because I've got to talk about what ICE is doing. Suffice it to say that O'Connor spent her entire life learning how to pray, and she didn't like the Lord's Prayer because it was too hard for her. She found it too hard, and so she wrote prayers of her own, sometimes 3 or 4 a day. And this is one. Oh God, please make my mind clear. I do not mean to deny the traditional prayers I have said all my life, but I have been saying them and not feeling them. My attention is so fugitive. What a great word, fugitive. Teach me how to pray. I want to plead with you today to learn how to pray. Why? Because if you can't pray with humility, you won't be able to say the Pledge of Allegiance or have appropriate allegiances. You'll always be too concerned about being right and not concerned enough about having appropriate allegiances. Did you say as a child, I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and with justice for all. David Letterman quipped, "Do you really think this is a good time to take God out of the pledge?" Religion constantly requires us to recalibrate our allegiances. I have strong allegiance to this nation under God. I still believe it can be great. I never want it to be first. I cannot, in addition, and I'm going to conclude, deny my ordination vows for any president of any nation state. Listen to the fifth question. Will you seek to regard all people with equal love and concern and undertake to minister impartially to the needs of all? I said while kneeling, I will, by the grace of God. Is the government recommending that I give sanctuary to you, but not to a person out of status with his or her government, and thereby asking me to disobey the greatness of my country and the vows of my ordination? Sounds like that to me. So back to karma. If we don't forgive others, God will not be able to forgive us. She will probably try, but we probably won't be able to receive it. Our salvation is on the line. We need to vet ourselves before we vet anybody else. There is only one executive order, at least for me, and that is what our parent who is in heaven said. Hallowed is that name, not the United States of America. And so with all due respect to the president, the duly elected president, and to our nation's laws, however misbegotten, with all due respect, I have previous allegiances to the Lord's Prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance, and my ordination that are causing me to give sanctuary to all of us sinners. Amen.